Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. It started 3 years ago, on one of those October nights that hangs heavy in your chest. You know the kind, where the wind smells like burnt leaves and your breath comes out in clouds, even if it's not quite freezing yet. The kind of night where something feels off, and you can't explain why. I was walking home from my shift at the gas station, 11:30 p.m. sharp, like always. I work the same hours every weekday, and I always walk the same route. That night, as I turned onto South Hill Avenue, I saw him. A guy, tall, wearing a red hoodie. He was standing under a busted street lamp that flickered like a dying bulb in a horror movie. Cliché, I know, but that's what it was. He didn't say anything, didn't move, didn't even tilt his head. He just watched me. I slowed down just a little but didn't stop. I figured, okay, weird dude, big city. You see it all. People watching the world go by, lost in their own madness. I walked past him, glancing over my shoulder once. He hadn't turned. He just kept looking straight ahead at me. The next night, he was there again. Same spot, same hoodie, same statue-like pose. I felt it in my gut that time. Something wrong. Something I didn't understand. I crossed the street early, kept my eyes forward, pretended not to notice him, even though I could feel the heat of his stare between my shoulder blades. By the third night, I took a different route. It added 12 minutes to my walk, but felt safer. Didn't matter. He was there too. Somehow, impossibly, he stood at the end of the next block beneath another street lamp, still broken, still flickering. And I swear to God, it was the same guy. Red hoodie, blank stare, frozen like a goddamn mannequin. That's when I knew it wasn't just a weird coincidence. It wasn't just me seeing a guy a few times and spooking myself. He was following me, and he wanted me to know it. That weekend, I stayed in. Didn't go out, didn't work. I called in sick, even though I needed the money. I thought maybe if I broke the pattern, he'd get bored, move on to someone else. But I was wrong. Things got worse. I'd hear my back gate creak open in the middle of the night. My porch light would be unscrewed in the morning. Once I found cigarette butts still warm, sitting in a neat pile on the steps outside my back door. I don't smoke. No one in the building did. Then, the footprints started. Muddy prints on the fire escape. Just one set, always going up, never coming down. The police were no help. I called them after the third time I found those prints. They sent over a young cop who barely looked old enough to shave. He took a look, asked if I had a roommate or a dog, then told me it was probably some kid messing around. He said, "There's no sign of forced entry. You're probably just imagining things." But I wasn't, and I could feel it. That pressure, that presence. One night, I stayed up, sat by the window with a baseball bat across my lap, heart thumping like a drum. I watched the street until dawn, but saw nothing. The next morning, I opened my fridge and found all my magnets arranged into a perfect circle on the kitchen table. I didn't put them there. Then came the night I'll never forget. I had just finished brushing my teeth. The bathroom mirror was foggy from the hot shower, but not enough to hide the reflection behind me. There he was, standing in my hallway, still, silent, wearing that same red hoodie. I turned around so fast I nearly slipped and cracked my skull. But when I looked, no one was there. Just the narrow hallway and the ticking sound of the bathroom fan. I checked every room in the apartment, every closet, under every bed, even inside the kitchen cabinets like some kind of lunatic. Nothing. I was sweating, shaking, breathing like I'd just run 10 miles. I almost thought I'd imagined it, until I got to the bedroom. That's where I saw it, laid out perfectly on my pillow, like a gift someone left with care, was a red hoodie. Not mine. Still smelled like smoke, like wet leaves, like him. I backed out of the room. Didn't sleep that night. Didn't sleep much for the next 2 weeks, actually. I moved the next day, broke my lease, threw all my furniture into a rental truck, drove 2 states away to stay with my cousin. He thought I was going through something. Said maybe I was stressed. Maybe I'd had a psychotic break. I let him think that. But here's the thing. That hoodie, I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I sealed it in a plastic bag and shoved it under the bed in the guest room. I don't know why. Maybe part of me thought if I kept it, he wouldn't come looking for it. Like, it was a kind of peace offering. Or maybe I just needed proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. I've never seen him again. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind scratches against the window and I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I think I hear the back gate creak. Just once. And sometimes, just sometimes, I find my porch light unscrewed in the morning. So I get up, check the bag. The red hoodie is still there. But I can't help wondering, what if one day it's not? Story 2. When I first moved into my cousin's old house in Wisconsin, he gave me the usual warnings. The kind of advice you get when you're inheriting someone's space after they've moved away. But there was one piece of advice that stuck with me more than the rest. Don't worry about the attic, he said, his voice casual. It's sealed shut. No one's been up there in years. It was an odd thing to say, especially when he didn't offer much of an explanation. But I've been looking for a new place, and the house itself was nice enough, a little older, a little more worn than I expected, but solid. The attic, a narrow door at the top of a steep flight of stairs, was tucked behind a creaky wooden panel, so I didn't think much of it. I had my own life to worry about, and there wasn't time to concern myself with a forgotten space. I moved in without a second thought. The first week was peaceful. The house creaked and groaned like any old house would. But soon, things started to feel a little off. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it. It was like there was something always just out of sight. A feeling that settled in the pit of my stomach whenever the sun went down. But that was just me, right? New place, new surroundings. I'd settle in. Then came the voicemails. It was late on a Friday night, the kind of night where the wind howled outside, rattling the windows like it was trying to get inside. I was scrolling through my phone, half watching a TV show, when I noticed I'd missed a call. The number was unknown, but that wasn't unusual. I've been getting a lot of calls from unfamiliar numbers since I moved here. I checked the voicemail. At first, it was just silence. Then, after a few moments, there came a sound, heavy, labored breathing. It was like someone was standing just outside the mic, right on the edge of the phone. It was erratic, like they couldn't catch their breath, and the rasp was so close that it made my skin crawl. I listened to it 3 times before I ended the call, my hand shaking just a little. I figured it was a prank, maybe a wrong number or someone messing around. But as the days passed, I kept getting more. The same pattern. No caller ID, no trace, just breathing. No words, just that same heavy, strained inhale and exhale. a sound that was both suffocating and menacing. It was as if the person on the other end was deliberately trying to make me feel like they were in the room with me. I changed my number. I thought that would do it, but the calls didn't stop. That's when I started hearing it. The scratching. I woke up one night, the sound slicing through the air in the dead of night. It wasn't the wind or an animal, but something deliberate, like nails dragging against wood. At first, I tried to ignore it, but it kept coming, scrape, 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 just above me, above my ceiling, somewhere deep in the walls. The sound was faint but unmistakable. It started at exactly 2 a.m. every night. I didn't know what to think. Was it rats? Mice? Maybe the house was settling. But that didn't explain the feeling I had in my chest, like something was building, like something was preparing to jump out of the shadows. One night I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. So I called pest control. They sent over a guy to inspect the attic, and when he came back downstairs, his face was pale. The attic's been opened recently, he said quietly. There's signs of someone living up there. Food wrappers, blankets, stuff like that. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. I'll take a look, I said, though my voice sounded hollow, like I wasn't quite ready for whatever I might find. We grabbed a flashlight and climbed up into the attic together. The moment we pried open the door, a wave of stale air hit me. The kind of air that hasn't been disturbed in years. I felt like I was intruding on something that wasn't meant to be found. But there it was, in the middle of the attic floor, laid out in front of me like some kind of macabre treasure trove. A blanket, some half-eaten food wrappers, my toothbrush, my missing toothbrush, the one I thought I'd lost weeks ago. But there was more, much more. Photographs, Polaroid pictures, stacked neatly on the floor. Hundreds of them, of me, sleeping. At first, I didn't understand. I picked one up, my hands trembling. There I was in my bed, my face peaceful, unaware. It had been taken from the foot of the bed, and I couldn't remember anyone being there. I flipped through more photos, each one worse than the last. Then I saw it, a photo with a date and time written on the back. Tonight, 2:03 a.m. My blood ran cold. The scratching, the voicemails, all of it had been leading up to this. Whoever had been watching me knew exactly when I'd hear that sound, when I'd be lying in my bed, helpless. I couldn't breathe. I called the police, but by the time they arrived, there was no trace of the person who had been living up there. No fingerprints, no DNA, not even a sign that anyone had been there in the past few days. Just a dirty attic and a whole bunch of photographs that proved I wasn't crazy. They never found the person. They never found any evidence that anyone had even been living there at all. But that didn't stop the voicemails. 3 nights later, I got another one. It was quiet at first. Then, a soft whisper, just barely audible. The attic wasn't the only place I watched from. And that was when I realized, with a sickening certainty, that it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Story 3. Back in college, I lived on the 3rd floor of a dormitory that faced a stretch of dark, dense woods. The building was old, with creaky floors and windows that rattled when the wind blew through the trees. The kind of place that could be eerie on a quiet night. But, for the most part, it was peaceful. At least, that's what I thought before I saw him, the smiling man. It was late October when I first noticed him. The leaves on the trees had started to turn yellow and orange, and the air had a crisp bite to it. I was sitting in my room, mindlessly scrolling through my phone, when I glanced out the window. The woods stretched out below me, thick and dark. I always liked the view, even though it felt a little too isolated for my taste. It was the kind of place you wouldn't want to wander into at night, but in the daylight, it looked calming. Or at least it did. That day I saw him. He was standing at the edge of the trees, barely visible through the branches, staring up at my window. His face was pale, almost unnaturally so, and his mouth was pulled into a wide, unsettling smile. His arms hung limply at his sides, and his body was rigid, as if he were frozen in place. I remember laughing nervously. Maybe he was just some random guy lost in the woods, or some weird college prank. It's Halloween season, I told my roommate, Caitlin, who was sitting at her desk on the other side of the room. Probably just some idiot trying to freak people out. But Caitlin didn't laugh. She stood up and walked over to the window, her face drawn tight. "He's still there," she whispered, her voice shaky. I pulled the curtain back. Sure enough, he was still standing there, unmoving. For a moment, I thought he might have seen me, but his eyes were fixed on something else. I couldn't make out the details of his face, but the smile, it never wavered. We didn't think much of it after that, but over the next few days, he kept coming back. Every night, without fail, standing at the edge of the trees, watching. The first few times, I tried to tell myself it was just a coincidence. But after a while, it became clear that he was deliberately positioning himself just beneath the window, always in the same spot. Closer, closer every time. The smile never faded. It was like he was waiting for something, or maybe someone. Then came the scratching. It started one night, just after midnight. I was lying in bed, my eyes heavy with exhaustion, when I heard it. Soft at first, a faint sound that could have been anything. A tree branch scraping against the side of the building, a rodent in the walls. But then it came again, and again. It was unmistakable. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was coming from outside the window, and it wasn't random. It was deliberate, a steady, rhythmic scraping, like fingernails being dragged slowly across the glass. I shot up, my heart pounding, my eyes wide with terror. But when I checked the window, there was nothing. No sign of anyone. Nothing but the dark void of the woods below. I didn't sleep much that night. The next day, I tried to shake it off, but the feeling never left. It was like something had crossed over that line between normal and terrifying, and I couldn't unsee it. I knew something was wrong. I bought blackout curtains the following afternoon. That night, I stayed up late, trying to read a book to distract myself. Caitlin was already asleep, her soft breathing filling the room. I kept the lights on, convinced that whatever it was, whatever he was, wouldn't dare come near if I just kept everything bright and safe. But I forgot to close the curtains. When I woke up that night, everything was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest, suffocating you. It felt wrong. I opened my eyes, blinking, trying to adjust to the dim moonlight spilling through the window. And that's when I saw it. The smile. At the foot of my bed, just inside the door, he was standing there, still as a statue. I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins. I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't cooperate. I wanted to move, but my limbs wouldn't obey. The man stood there for what felt like hours, his smile wide and grotesque. It wasn't a human smile. It was something darker. His eyes never blinked, and that mouth, so unnaturally wide, stayed stretched, as if mocking me. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Something in his gaze held me captive. It was like a spider's web, and I was the fly. Then he leaned in. I could feel his breath, cold and rank, like rot, on my face. My skin crawled. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and I thought I might pass out from fear. "Windows don't stop me anymore," he whispered, his voice like gravel being ground underfoot. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was as if the world had stopped around us, and the only thing that existed was that horrible grin and the cold air that surrounded him. I wanted to ask who he was, what he wanted, why he was here, but the words wouldn't come. The fear was too much. And then, just like that, he was gone, vanished, as if he'd never been there at all. The room felt empty, too empty. The silence that followed was suffocating. I checked the door. Locked. The window. Shut tight. No signs of entry. No footprints. No nothing. Just the feeling that something had been there and had left without a trace. The next morning, I packed up my things. I couldn't stay there. I couldn't stay in that room, in that building, knowing that someone had watched me, knowing that whatever it wasn't finished. I transferred out the very next day. Caitlin didn't understand. She said I was overreacting, that I was just stressed out from school, but I couldn't shake the feeling. It wasn't just my mind playing tricks on me. I had seen him. I knew what I had seen. And sometimes, even now, years later, when I'm lying in bed, I still wake up in the dead of night. The room feels heavy, cold, and I can feel it again. That sensation, the feeling of being watched. And then I remember that smile, the one that never leaves. And I know he's still out there, watching, smiling, waiting,